So we're welcome back. Here we go. So my name's Marc. I'm a product designer at Deal Group. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what is product strategy. This is a talk more geared towards designers. However, I do think that there's going to be some bits in here for product managers and how you can get your designers involved a little bit to be more strategic thinking, to get involved in helping set that strategy at all levels, from vision all the way down to execution. Before I jump into that, I just want to get a quick gauge in the audience. How many people here are designers? Okay, that's pretty good. That's a lot more than I was expecting. The other kind of caveat I'm going to give is Ignacy here is extremely charismatic, and it's going to be a really tough act to follow. I am not that charismatic, so I hope that the value I can add to this is some tidbits you can take away and hopefully apply, and we'll lean on that really heavily. So, as I said, my name's Marc. I'm a lead product designer at Deal. I've only been here about 3 months, and my journey there didn't always look like that. I'm going to skip these because I didn't get enough time to prep for this based on some things that were happening internally in my organization, getting the slides approved. So we're going to skip through the fun parts. However, I will dive a little bit into my story to help set up where some of this is coming from. So, in 2013, right out of university, some friends and I decided, we were really big into the party scene, EDM specifically, which did not have much of a scene in Canada. And we decided we wanted to create a company that would help other people interested in EDM find events that were happening. And so we started a small business. That very, very quickly, we got in over our heads. We hired an artist that we were not prepared to be able to support. And so we very, very quickly were in a situation where we had to sink or swim. And we ended up, thankfully, swimming. But shortly after that, we were acquired through an amalgamation deal in Canada, which put me back on the market. And I knew at that point I never wanted to be a CEO or founder or anything like that ever again. Not cut out for it. As I said, not very charismatic. And I was getting way over my head. So I jumped into consulting. I thought, if I can't lead a company, I can help other people do that. And so very quickly, I found my niche in fintech. I was fortunate enough that a lot of my mentors were in the fintech side of things, were in finance or in banking. And so the transition out of being a founder into consulting happened through those mentors, through those original investors in my first company. And in that kind of era of my career, I got to work with a lot of great product teams, a lot of great design teams. And I found myself kind of slowly starting to spend more time with designers. Not because I thought, design's amazing and I love spending time in, at the time it was Photoshop, but more because I thought the challenges that they were solving were super interesting. From there, I jumped into this company called Intellect Technologies. It's one of the largest health and safety companies in the world, and I was their first product design hire. I was also the second hire in their product team in general. That was a product person. And that company, over the course of the 4 years I was there, we grew it from a 2-person product organization to a 20-person product organization, and the company ended up being acquired for about $500 million US, which at the time was the largest acquisition in Toronto in that sphere. So we were really, really proud of that. After that, I joined this company called Procurify. They had a similar investor, a mutual investor with Intellect Technologies, and it was a kind of natural transition for me. I led the product team there. And so all of this is just to kind of set up that I've always been someone heavily invested in strategy because of where I came from. And it's my firm belief that having designers or people design mindset, just having more people involved than just product people in strategy, again, at all layers from strategy down to execution, is extremely important. So that brings me to Deal. I promised the team I would talk a little bit about Deal while I was here. So for anyone that doesn't know, Deal is an all-in-one helping platform. It's a HR platform for teams that are looking to hire people from all over the world. What really excited me about Deal was I recently moved to Spain, 2 years ago. And at the time I was working for a Canadian company that didn't want me to, and deal came on my radar at that time. You know, through the kind of craziness of life, I ended up working here. And I'm really, really passionate about their mission, which is to help millions of people work for the best companies in all out of their location, because talent is everywhere and opportunities. And so that's kind of what I'm dedicating myself to these days. Just a little bit more about me, just to set the scene. You're Hawaiian, Sicilian, Canadian. My name's Marc, spelled with C, not Catalan, throws everyone off. I'm a husband and father. I have a huge passion for cooking, and my caterer really, really enjoys playing board games and TTRPGs for so that's all right. Professionally, I'm super passionate about building high-performing, high-impact design teams. Again, I'm leveraging my background in having my own company in strategy. I really, really like imparting that knowledge on designers and helping them set these same high expectations and standards I have for myself, for themselves, and the people around them. Finally, I really, really enjoy inserting myself into situations that maybe I wasn't invited to, but I think I can contribute to. And I use this term that I like to aggressively partake in collaboration, which is related to me, you know, inserting myself into situations that are not necessary. But it always works out for the best. I build partnerships very easily and really enjoy that camaraderie that happens when you're trying to build something. So to sum all that up, the key to my success is just really having a strong understanding of business opportunities, identifying how design can play a part in it, and helping the business reach its goals. So why did I decide to give this talk? I've touched on it a couple times already, but I think it's extremely, extremely important for designers to understand what strategy is, for product managers to understand how they can help their designers understand what strategy is and take part in it. Over the last few years, at Deal itself, probably in the last 3 months, I've given about 30 or 40 job interviews to designers. Prior to that, I was a hiring manager at Purify, and I probably interviewed over 100 designers. And my favorite thing I would ask people is, what are you looking for in your next role? Right? Common question. And the number one answer we get from designers is, I want to be more strategic. I want to take on a more strategic role. I want to define strategy for my team. And I would always follow that up with, okay, great. What does strategy mean to you? What do you think a strategy is, right? And I would get this huge plethora of answers. And sometimes they hit the mark, oftentimes they didn't. If I had this set up, you would get to see that. But we'll handle that later. So digging into that, I was really, really interested because there's this huge interest in it. But no one really, or at least many designers don't know what it is. And so Norman Nielsen actually did a study on it. And they took a bunch of people that were in design roles or design adjacent roles, people coming from all these different backgrounds, that were looking to try and set direction and make an impact through planning or through their work in their organizations. And the two biggest takeaways they found that led to these struggles was a lack of vision and strategy from those UX professionals, and a misunderstanding of what strategy is and what it can do for the organization, which falls in line with what I've been seeing in my interviews. So I want to dive a little bit into it. What is product strategy, right? And for the product managers in the room and the professionals that deal with strategy in their everyday life, Ignacy used a very good phrase here that I'm going to borrow. This is a gross oversimplification. But I think it's a great entry point for people that don't know what it is to form a mental model of what strategy is. And it's a great framework for you as product managers to include your designers during these grossly oversimplified stages of product strategy. So at a very high level, a product strategy is just helping outline how a product can get a business where it wants to go, right? At a very high level, this is what it is. But interestingly, it's made up of a couple of different pieces. When we talk about product strategy, it's normally in the context of what's your mission, what's your vision, how's your roadmap contributing to it, right? And this is the piece that I find a lot of designers don't know. A lot of designers want to start here, right? They want to be making decisions They want to be saying what's on the roadmap, why, right? But they don't take everything kind of as a whole, right? So I want to briefly touch on these 3 topics for the designers and companies. Product vision, this is kind of where it all starts. And even if we take a step back one, the business vision, what's the business want to do? Where's the business go, right? Someone asked a question earlier about, hey, what was the mission of your business when you were at pitched? And that's a really, really important question. If you don't know what the mission of your company is, it's very, very hard to set a vision, right? Well, I mean, it's easy to set a vision. It's hard to set a good vision. From that vision, once you have that clear thing in your mind, right, with deal, let's say we want to hire people or help other companies hire people from all over the world, right? We want to get great talent from areas that don't have opportunities and give them to companies that want that talent. So that's our vision. What's our product strategy attached to that, right? How do we use the product, use the talent that we have in product, and get it towards that vision? And this is where it's probably a good idea to say that this isn't a one-line type thing. This isn't a linear thing. This isn't one vertical thing. A product vision can exist at the top of a company where we're talking about all the products and all the product verticals. It can also exist within each product vertical. Right? Each product vertical can have its own vision. Each product vertical can have its own strategy, and obviously have its own. And as you get kind of further and further down the organization tree, you get more strategies and more about vibes. So product strategy itself, right? It looks like one simple step, but there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, hey, this is the vision, this is what I want to do, right? Product managers, as half this room knows, are looking at more than just what they want to know. It's what does the business actually need right now, right? What does the market need right now? And what do our customers need right now? And how do we balance and juggle all 3 of those things to craft that strategy? And then break that strategy down into actionable items based on these things. And more importantly, how do we prioritize these things to craft a strategy that makes sense? So where does design fit into all of this, right? What about design? The designer, I'm standing here talking to you about strategy. Half the room knows this and is falling asleep, and the other half probably has a million questions. So that's what we'll talk about now. So to understand where design fits into this, you first have to understand where you're contributing as a designer, right? And I'm not talking only about what your title is, but what the level of product maturity is in your organization, what the level of design maturity is in your organization, and where you as a designer have your certain set of skills that makes you a designer. So I love this triangle, so you're gonna see it a couple times. Understanding where you're operating at there's a couple things you can do. So let's use this model we've created of product roadmap, product strategy, product vision. You're really contributing to a roadmap when the decisions are being made and then you're being made aware of them. As a designer, if decisions are made and then you're made aware of them, you're contributing to the roadmap, right? If you're asked to estimate effort without giving input into what that thing is, you're just contributing to the roadmap. Solutions are given to you to deliver, right? If you're just getting a list of requirements, you're contributing to the roadmap. And if you're finding yourself over 75% of your time in Figma, you're contributing to the roadmap. So strategy, you're contributing to product strategy when you are helping plan that roadmap. If you're doing quarterly planning or planning every 6 months or planning every year, and your PM pulls you into that room, and PM here's the first place that you can get designers involved. And they're asking you, hey, is there anything from a design perspective you want to achieve this quarter, or you want to achieve this year? Or they're willing to work with you to understand why a design is important or why fixing something is important in UI. That's strategy. That's strategy planning, right? Design projects are prioritized against new features and against tech work. So if you find yourself and you have all these ideas and you break them to your PM at the beginning of the planning cycle, and they say, okay, great, we have some time for some quick wins, that's not strategy, right? That's, you're kind of being placated. They're kind of patting you on the head and telling you to go play with your blocks, right? So what you need to do is get yourself into a position, and we'll get into this a little bit after, where your design asks are getting prioritized against tech debt, against tech needs, against features. Time is carved out of the roadmap for research and testing. This is a big one, right? A lot of organizations today have scaled back on research, have scaled back on us, especially in market kind of conditions that we're in. If your roadmap doesn't have time where you as a designer can take a step back and do some generative research or work with your research team to do that research, you're not taking part in the strategy, right? You're reacting. And finally, if you don't have standard operating procedures between design and product, between processes that support those, you're probably not taking part in product strategy. Define the vision, right? I get into this a little bit later, but this is our superpower as designers. A lot of companies, their product vision is just a statement. It's, hey, this is what we think. As designers, we have a very unique skill set to help bring that alive, right? When you see big tech companies that do big feature launches or do commercials or advertisements about their feature and it's not launched yet, that's a vision, right? There's designers working hard on that. If you're actively discussing how design impacts the business and the business outcomes with your senior stakeholders, that's like part of vision. And finally, senior stakeholders, if you're preemptively inputting your designers when product decisions are being made, you're helping those designers take part in vision. So my second piece of advice is look for opportunities to take the initiative and get involved often. One thing I learned early in my career is no one's going to come to you at your desk or call you on Zoom or start a huddle in Slack and say, hey, do you want to be strategic? Do you want to take part in strategy? No one's going to do that. And no one even does that to product managers, right? That's just their job. They need to step up and do that thing. Otherwise, there's no strategy, there's no roadmap, right? And as designers, as product people, it doesn't matter whether you call yourself a designer or a product manager, that should be the fuel that kind of helps drive you, that burns that passion. So look for opportunities to take that initiative and step up and go to your product manager and say, hey, there's this piece of design that I believe if we fix, we can move X metric, or we can move the needle on this thing business really cares about. So I showed you this a little bit earlier, how product managers are juggling these three concepts: business needs, market needs, customer needs. I break this down a little bit further for the designers in the room just to make it super clear. Customer needs, user problems, design heuristics, surveys. These are things that we know intuitively as designers and we love to complain about and say there's no time to do. Do them, find time, right? User problems, sometimes we hear them kind of by proxy. Other times we're fortunate enough to work in companies where you can't do those interviews or you can use some kind of software to understand those user problems. Make a note of them. Make a note of what areas of design aren't supporting those user problems. Keep that in your back pocket for when, quarterly planning or annual planning program. Next one, design heuristics. This is the one that you look at a design and you're like, that sucks, right? That was made by a bunch of engineers in a room without a PM or a designer. These are big opportunities, right? Keep those in your back pocket. Surveys, it costs you nothing, right? And marketing, normally in most companies, sends out a survey every month. Ask marketing if you can get a slot on their monthly survey. If you have a burning question, ask it. Hey, it's all about those relationships that you're going to build. Business needs, look at your company OKRs, try and tie them down with the customer needs, right? Look at your important workflows, your crucial workflows, whether that's a growth workflow where you're trying to get sign-ups or you're something that's going to drive retention. Look at those things and say, is this the best quality I can produce? And engage your PM again. Data and metrics, obviously, right? If you have access to those things, be looking at them, understand how they're affecting the work that's taking place, how they affect your work, and how your work affects them. Find things market needs. So this one is where a lot of designers really drop the ball, in my experience. This is the one that requires a little bit of proactiveness. Build out those internal relationships. Build out relationships with your sales teams. Build out relationships with your CSMs. Any customer-facing team, marketing. They're going to tell you exactly what they're struggling with, what they're hearing most often, right? Your PMs already know these things. You're finding out a reaction. get ahead of the ball, find out those things, make recommendations, right? Industry news. If you're not following industry news in the company you're working at, you're reacting, right? If you don't know what the big thing is in your industry, you're always just going to be reacting. Listen to influencers in that industry. Join forums. Go to conferences, right? All of these things are going to start giving you indicators that something's wrong in the market, or there's an opportunity, or your designs aren't doing what they need to do, or there's a need that maybe you've already met and it's not clear. Start learning these things, and you can talk on the same levels as your PMs and product marketing managers and operations staff. So if all of that seems too much for you, let me introduce you to a little bit of product strategy. Design strategy. So this is from Norman Nielsen. It's paraphrased by me, but a UX strategy is just your plan to achieve a better future for the company that you work at through user experience, and more importantly, over a specific period of time. There's a triangle. So I assume as designers and as product people, we get the first two: tasks and support, solutions and features. Those are our bread and butter. We do them every day. We live, breathe, eat, sleep them. But as designers, we don't do a great job of planning, right? How do you get to a place where you can start planning solutions and features? How do you set goals? How do you create a vision, right? Look familiar, right? It's the same thing that the product managers are doing. We can do that same thing. We just need take that extra step, get that knowledge, take that initiative. So design strategy really is just a product strategy. Design, if you look at your UI or UX, it's a product of your company, right? It might not be a tangible product that you sell, but it's in that same, it's in an equal but parallel route. You own that product. You are the product manager of your designs. So again, taken from the LBDs, and they use this great example where they say, hey, here's a vision. We want to deliver a caring, convenient digital healthcare experience. Here's some goals against that. From the users really care about increasing their access to healthcare. The business just wants to grow and maintain their patient list, right? For a plan, that means setting your roadmaps, having your presentation decks, your spreadsheets, your digital and physical whiteboards, all talking about the same thing, all talking about those user needs. So the business can say all at once that it wants to grow and maintain patients. It can say they want to grow their annual contract value. They want to grow their recurring revenue, right? You as a designer, take those things, put it in your head, and say, what does the user actually want out of this? And how do we drive the user needs so the business gets what it wants, right? So the users want to increase their healthcare access, convenience. So everything you are doing, you should be with that in the back of your mind. How do we help users get more access to this healthcare? And how do we help them do it conveniently? So that's an example. So before you get started on the UX strategy, you need to ask yourself a couple questions here. Why do you need a UX strategy? Is there something right now that your users need that isn't being served, right? Is there something you can contribute, right? Can you aggressively collaborate with someone to get something done for your users? What's the most impactful things that you can do right now for those users, right? Who will champion your cause with you? Do you have a great relationship with your PM? Do you have a great relationship with your design team? Can you make upwards pressure about the changes you want to see, right? And how will you measure the impact of that change? Because that measuring the impact and showing the results of that impact is what's going to get you brought in the room. Again, no one's going to reach out to you on Slack and say, do you want to be more strategic? But people will start coming to you and say, what do you think about this, right? And that only happens once you've shown that what you believe and feel in your heart actually has a measurable impact on the business, on the product. So how to craft a design strategy. Number one, craft a vision. So you know your business vision, you know your mission, you know the product vision, hopefully at this point. This is our superpower, right? We know what the product vision is. Let's make it. Let's show people it. Let's get them excited. Let's get them to understand how design can directly impact that and get people not only internally but externally excited for your vision. Get people asking you, hey, when's that going to be launched, right? We've all seen that in user interviews when you show someone something and they immediately gravitate towards it and they say, great, when's this coming out, right? That's what you want, but on the vision level, what your product is offering. Connect user goals with the product and the business. Again, if you're doing the first one properly, you're doing the second one. But have a deep understanding of your users, and then design for them. And finally, it has to be research-based. You're never, ever, ever going to get the opportunity to stand in front of a decision maker and say, hey, I think we should move in this direction design-wise, without some kind of data behind you. Or at least you're never going to get them because they're going to say why. And if you just say, it looks pretty, you're going to say, go with your bullets, right? Secondly, create and align those goals. So those goals must be measurable. They must be tied to metrics that the business cares about. They can be very, very important metrics, but if the business hasn't specifically said that they care about those metrics, this quarter, this year, this cycle, you're probably not going to get the excitement that you feel for it. So look at those OKRs, line those goals up with your OKRs. That's the best way. Change management. Read up on change management. There's a bunch of frameworks. Get people on your side. Build champions. Build partnerships with CSM. Build partnership with sales. Build partnerships with your product manager. Get them just as excited about you. Have like a grassroots effort start building where people in your organization are talking about this design that the designer, the growth team created that could potentially have a bunch of impact. Once people start having those conversations and that starts bubbling up, leaders, product managers, whoever start taking notice, and they're going to come to you and say, hey, what do you think about this? And finally, prioritize those things. You might have a bunch of ideas. You might have one idea with a bunch of things that need to happen to make that idea work. You need to be able to prioritize them. You need to know immediate impact, because each and every time you show value, you build confidence, you build trust, you build rapport with the people that are going to partner with you. And finally, centric and right? Describe, don't prescribe. So describe where you want to be. Don't tell people how to do it. Tell people what it's going to look like, right? Create principles. Build muscles within your team. If you're a senior designer or an main designer, or you run a design team, start building the proper processes. Start building muscles. Start getting people doing the right things over and over again, and you're going to slowly start moving that needle. Right? Have realistic timelines. Just because you have a great idea, you can align it to a goal, you can get people excited about it, doesn't mean you're going to make it on the roadmap this quarter, right? It's the reality of it. Sometimes things are already committed, sometimes there's downwards pressure from the board, from other stakeholders. Other areas of the business have initiatives that are more important. Have realistic timelines and understand that that big change happens over many little changes. So just some parting words for you. Again, outcomes don't happen overnight. Many small changes over time lead to big changes over time. You're only as good as the muscles you build. Thank you. Yes, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm a product manager and I struggle with designers. It's either
sorry.
And my question is a bit more specific. It's when I began working, when I got into my role, I sort of said, okay, my role is to ask them to do something, and they'll tell me how to do it. I should empower them. And at some points, they went hunting and they were lost in the forest, and they never, it was not specific enough. And then in other cases, it was far too specific. Told them exactly what to do. And they felt that, I'm not using their talent, and I shouldn't be spending so much time on finding. I don't know if you have any tips on finding the right path of where the line crosses between product and design.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think a lot of people don't think of when they think of designers is design is kind of a stakeholder, right? They have a big impact on what can come out of the product. And if you need something from designers, it's the same kind of stakeholder management that happens with people that know what they're talking about, except now it's people that typically don't have a good sense of, you know, what metrics are important, or I shouldn't generalize designers like this, but, you know, painting in broad strokes, this organization typically doesn't care about, you know, big business wins, right? They're normally looking at, hey, you know, how can we improve our design maturity? How can we get to a place where, you know, we have a seat at the table? And so if you need things specifically from designers, I go-to thing as a design leader is say, hey, here's the outcome we need to achieve. Here's the needle we need to move, right? What would you recommend? And get them to give you some suggestions, and actually challenge them. How does that get us closer, right? Make them articulate their thought pattern, and then you can begin refining it, right? If they say, oh, I think we should do a survey, you say, great, what do we get from the survey? Oh, well, you know, we have 1 million unanswered questions. If we just get some answers to that question, you know, we feel like we can design something better. Great, what's your number one question? What's the biggest question you have? Let's go get an answer to it, right? So let them put that back on you, and then refine it, and help kind of steer the conversation that way. That's my biggest advice. Yes?
Yeah, thank you, Marc. My name is Letta, and I'm a product. I struggle with design people. That's not true. I'm not. No. I'm not. My question is actually a little bit opposite. So I work in a company with 2 co-founders. Sometimes I feel like there are 8 of them.
Okay.
And they have a pretty strong vision, mission, ideas. And those pretty strong ideas change pretty rapidly, right? I guess people can feel my pain. So when this happens over time, right? So my question is about, as a designer, because we have very talented designers I work with, as a designer, how do you align your ideas, and how do you handle the situation with senior stakeholders? Because if you step in and you're starting to setting the strategy, or even trying to set your ideas to contribute, right? Sometimes it feels a little bit overwhelming, and the ideas are competing to each other. How do you handle it, like, in your real cases?
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, it's when you have a bunch of competing priorities, and you have senior stakeholders that are interested in what design wants to do, that there's having ideas conflict with each other. How do you reconcile that?
Mostly how when ideas conflict, and senior stakeholders will always have this very strong voice in the competition.
Okay, so yeah, as a designer, sometimes you can have a great idea, right? You can have a winning idea. It happens. You can have all the research in the world, and you bring it to separate stakeholders. They say, no, we're going to move forward on this. First of all, if you're in that position as a designer, like, bravo to you, because a lot of designers have been in that position, right? So how do you keep up that momentum, right? I think this is where teams comes into play a lot, right? When a product manager pitches something that they really, really believe in, and it gets shot down, what happens, right? Product managers know that this is part of the process, and designers don't, right? Designers get really, really excited for things, and, you know, they get the buy-in from their product manager. They might even get the buy-in from their manager, and they start getting excited. And that's great, right? We want to channel that enthusiasm. We want that they keep getting excited about these things. When those things get shot down, it's a matter of saying, hey, you know, bring the team together and say, hey, I think your idea was good. I think there's a lot of potential in this. Let's try and find an improvement for next quarter. Let's try and, you know, maybe this quarter, it's going to depend on why it was shot down, but I think it's showing the designer that you support them, that you believe in them, that there's still potential for whatever idea that they had to come through at a better time or more opportune moment. Because what we want to avoid is them feeling like, oh, it doesn't matter what I do, it's just going to get chunked down, right? So if the rest of the team believes in them and encourages it, they'll go through again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you tell just a bit about your company? What do you do? You mentioned you are doing hiring.
Right.
Are you recruiting company? Are you a recruiting company?
No, so Deal is basically an HR company that allows companies to hire talent from anywhere in the world to their company. So let's say you are a company in the United States. You want to hire someone that's very talented in India, but you don't have an entity there, right? Deal offers you a couple options on how you can hire that person and be compliant in India and in the United States, hiring that individual.
But what's the difference between, I don't know, do you have any competitors? And
Yeah.
what's the difference between your services and others?
That's a great question. Putting me on the spot. I would say that I can talk about my experience from it, right? I would say that the passion I have experienced at Deal about that mission is extremely refreshing. It's extremely invigorating. And who knows, maybe I'm still in the honeymoon phase. The reality is like any company that has competitors in the space, they're going to do largely the same things, right? It's about how your company executes on those things, how much people put value in that mission and how they live that mission out in your interactions with your clients. And I think Deal does that very well.
Okay. Actually, I'm using your product. So I thought that you will say something different about you and competitors in your domain. I have recently tackled, I need to populate a W6 form because my contractor is in US and I'm tax resident here. So actually my company are using your service to overcome legal, like a false autonomous thing.
Yeah.
So we are using that. So I thought you will highlight that comparatively to other.
We do it way better.
Yeah.
Much better. You can talk to Marc, he owns that product area. He'll talk all about it. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, you talked a lot about the collaboration between designers and product managers. And I feel like there's also some magic that happens when designers and engineers collaborate well together. And as a PM, I often felt like I had to kind of mediate that.
Yeah.
So what have you seen? Like what works well when designers and engineers work closely?
I love that you said that. I just met up with one of my PM counterpart, or soon to be PM counterpart, and we were discussing the exact same thing. How sometimes PMs feel like they can be referees between the engineers and designers, and how it's supposed to be a triad, right? But really it's like the engineer wants something, tells the PM tells the designer, hey, the engineer wants this, the designer says, no, we're not gonna do that because of this, right? First of all, that sucks, and I'm sorry. But I think the PM really, you can approach it in different ways depending on your personality. My preferred way, and what I tell PMs that work with my designers, is step out of the way, right? Literally say, hey, you have this problem or you have this belief with your engineering counterpart, go talk to that person. Try and find common ground, right? Those relationships are just as important. I focus on design and product here because that who happens to be in the room. But I think that relationship is just as important because when designers understand the technology they're working with or understand what's possible, they might have a good understanding of technology, but they don't know something's possible or not possible. Or they're exposed to kind of the unique mindset that is that of a developer. Sometimes new ideas happen, right? The best ideas come from the constraints put on the problem, right? So my number one piece of advice is step out of the way, make them duke it out, right? Let them interact with each other and build that same relationship that you have with each of them. Super important.
Yeah, maybe one last question and then we can eat something and discuss.
I also don't want to stand between you and pizza, so. Yes?
Marc was a C. It's not going to be tough one like competitor customer feedback here, but look, I mean, yeah, maybe it's your honeymoon phase, but it feels when we talk about the most working in current company which is suggesting the strategies. I mean, it's very good, right? It's very nice, and the designer would like to work in a company like that, which is great, right? But we know that reality can be different. I'm very surprised none of the designers actually asked the question. I'm very surprised, which just suggests like you need to be more proactive, right?
Or I'm
Be more
very
successful.
convincing.
But maybe the difference as well, I mean, what I've noticed recently, and I had to explain to my designers the difference is, a lot of people here could be actually user experience designers. And there is a difference between that and product design, and maybe you can address it and you work your strategy.
Oh, you're really trying to get me crucified up here. All right. So I've got some hot takes on this topic. I don't know how deep into that we'll get. At the end of the day, I think UX design, product design, interaction design, information architects, if we want to keep going back, we can name the titles. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. We do it in different ways, right? Product designers are typically going to be embedded into product teams. Classically are in big B2B organizations, but now a little bit more recently have been getting into B2C. And I think product designers care very, very deeply about UX as well. And that's not to say that UX designers don't care about product, don't care about metrics. I just think that the least of my spicy takes is that what people call themselves is important to them, and that's where they tend to focus. So if I call myself a product designer, I care very, very deeply about product. I consider myself product management adjacent, right? Whereas a UX designer is going to say, I care very, very deeply about user experience and only care about that. And I don't really, not that you don't care about what product wants to get out of it, but it's not your main focus. And that's the hottest of takes I'll give on that conversation. But I think at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want to build a product that people love, that get the job done, and that help us achieve success, however it is we define that success.
Yeah, that's great. But if I could add to it, like, I think because we're shifting to this, like, you can Google like depth of UX, right? We're shifting to it. So if you look from user experience perspective, it's like, do I design an electric car or do I design a petrol car, right? And people will use electric, I mean, it's the way to go, right? But if you travel in Scotland, let's say, there's no electric chargers. So from product perspective, we need to, it's like a fit for purpose, and that's what the strategy is kind of piece of it.
Yep.
That's when you need to be more open.
Yeah, I think from a product perspective, I would say that from a product perspective, we would look at it from the inverse direction, right? Where a UX designer is saying, hey, electric car is a better experience. A product designer is saying, hey, our company sells electric cars. Do we have the infrastructure in Scotland to roll it out? Right? It's the same thing coming from different angles.
We only have time until 9, so maybe we can start eating something, drinking something. You can ask the questions.
It's a good one. It's on AI.
Okay. The last one.
Let's work. What's your personal view on AI? Like, how does that help you?
In with like generative AI or?
Let's start with generative.
Okay, generative AI. So I'm a little bit biased on it because I do a lot of work in board game design, tabletop RPG design, and way back in the days, I did a lot of digital art long before AI existed. And so a lot of artists tend to fall in the camp where AI is evil, they steal artwork, and that may be true. I'm not going to discuss the politics of that. Personally, I like using generative AI to supplement my workflow, right? So if I'm going to be designing something and I need to come up with some ideas, I can type a prompt in there, it'll give me some ideas, and then I can go to work, right?
On experience, like assets, or
depends what it is at that time. So most recently, I needed to come up with a title page for a book, right?
Okay.
And I was given a brief and a prompt, and it's super nerdy, but it was basically like a giant fighting a dragon. How would that look, right? And there's a million ways you can take that. You can prompt AI 10 times and get 40 different results and say, oh, I like this about that, I like this about that. And you can craft your own idea of what that situation is. It's the same thing in UX. Using generative AI for UX. First of all, it's not there yet, and it's really, really bad in its current state, in my opinion. But sometimes, right, you can put a million different prompts in there and you get some interesting ideas, right, that you can take and work with. And I think creativity is being able to see a bad idea and turn it into a good one.
So, like,